Welcome to the Immigrant Podcast, where we break down the major moments of U.S. history and the role it plays on immigrants. I'm Dalton.
And I'm Nima.
And I'm Jake. Today we are talking about the pivotal year in the U.S. immigration policy, 1996.
That's right. The mid-1990s saw major changes in how the U.S. handled immigration, enforcement, and the rights of immigrants. These laws continue to affect millions across our nation decades later.
So what exactly happened in 1996? Let's jump right into it.
Before we get into the laws themselves, let's set the stage. The 1990s were a time of the rising concern over immigration, and the U.S. public perception was shifting.
Right. After the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 gave legal status to millions of undocumented immigrants, a lot of Americans felt like their borders were too loose. Then came the recession in the early 1990s, and some began to blame immigrants for job competition and strained public services.
And national security also played a role too. The 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center really shook the country. Even though only a few of the perpetrators were immigrants, it added fuel to the fire and increased pressure on lawmakers to take action. So in 1996, President Bill Clinton signed two landmark laws. The first was the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act, or the IIRIRA. The second was the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, aka the Welfare Reform. These laws reshaped the legal landscape for immigrants and their families.
So let's break down the IIRIRA first. This law was a game changer. One major change was how it expanded the types of crimes that could trigger deportation. We were just not talking violent crimes. People were deported for things like writing bad checks or petty theft.
Exactly, and what made it even more extreme was that these laws applied retroactively. That means someone could have committed a misdemeanor 10 years ago, served their time, built a family in America, and they would still be deported by it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was very unfair for these immigrants because they came in and they were treated like they're dehumanized, which was very unfair to them. It also introduced a mandatory detention. That's when immigrants with certain legal issues, like being accused of a crime or violating a visa, are automatically detained while their case is being decided, no bail, no hearing, just locked up. So they couldn't even have a right to speak, even though they got put in like a jail or something like for something that they didn't do.
That's a very important point too, and we see this happening because these immigrants, they're serving their time, everything's already happened, it should be in the past, but it's still being brought up in their entire lives, and the lives of their families to where being completely altered by.
And like I said earlier, it kind of dehumanizes them in a way for, they're coming here for a new opportunity and we're turning them down with them not even being able to speak, which I think is unfair. You have any thoughts on that?
We can't forget the 3 and 10-year bars. These rules say that immigrants that are undocumented for more than 100 days can't come back to this country for more than 3 years. And I mean, someone comes here for 180 days and gets married here, they would have to leave their fiance or wife behind. If they had a child, they would have to leave the mother and their child behind, and that would cause so many issues with so many families. That would be terrible, and I would be saddened by all the problems in the U.S.
I agree. Like, imagine being put in those shoes, You travel here, you're excited for new opportunities, you're excited to live the American dream, but no, you get turned down right away. It's very unfair. They keep dehumanizing them.
Dehumanized.
If that's the word of the day, I guess.
And I think that's one of the key nuances of this issue is that the family status of these people. If one member of the family gets deported, like that completely affects the entire family. If it's the father, that's like mainly the breadwinner. You need a wife needs to completely change everything. If it's a child, the parents are gonna have to go like back with the child. You can't leave them unattended. And what's even wild is that these laws, they didn't even just hit undocumented immigrants. Even green card holders, people who are legally in the United States, were affected. If they committed a crime that was on the new list, they could be deported with very limited access to try and get that decision appealed.
Yep. And speaking of appeals, the IIRIRA basically stripped judges of their power to grant relief in many cases. Immigration judges couldn't consider factors like how long someone lived there, whether they had U.S. citizen or children, or if deportation would cause hardship. It was all about strict categories and checkboxes for them. They didn't really see the person as a person. It was more off of a checkbox, and they would just see it off of a piece of paper. They wouldn't really know the person.
It's bringing it back to the same thing you were talking about earlier about the dehumanization.
Yep.
They weren't even seen as people; they were just seen as immigrants, and that
Yep.
was now because of these laws, that was seen as more of a problem
Yep.
than anything.
Then there's section 287G. That allowed local law enforcement to act like federal immigration agents. This was beginning of what we now call a deportation pipeline, where local police collaboration with ICE. So in local neighborhoods, police, sheriffs, and deputies would go around and they would basically give information to ICE agents.
Yep.
And they would take away families, they would separate families, and again, dehumanize the people
Yep.
of the land.
And kind of like with the ICE thing, as like they would go to these people's houses. They would take them out. They couldn't say a word. They wouldn't listen to them. Like they're just not seen as people, which isn't right because we're in a country where all of us are immigrants.
We're all equal. We have
We're
inalienable
all
rights.
equal. We all what's the word? We all came from a different country. Came here to start our country. That's how our country was fired
We're a
off. of
diverse
rebellion.
country.
Yeah.
We're a
And
diverse
on that
country.
note, our country was founded with the values of liberty and equality.
Yeah.
And if we still stand by those values, and we are having just police agents come out of the blue and like pretty much abduct families
Yeah.
without any warning whatsoever, what does that say about us as a country with how we treat people who just don't look like us? It's really bad.
Yep.
And this blurred the line too, as well, between criminal justice as well and immigration enforcement. It's something as simple as stopping or not stopping at a traffic signal
Yeah.
could lead to deportation.
Yeah,
That's how
exactly.
extreme all the laws were.
Exactly. If you did the littlest thing wrong, they could find something. Like, let's say, like, I pulled you over for speeding, but then, like, I noticed something was off. I could just take you to jail, and then you could get deported for that. But there's no cause. Like, I could have no cause to do it, but I could still deportate you because of these laws. Like, it's not right.
And I would like to take a little break and shout out our sponsor, Waterloo, for this video. Every can donated is another meal to immigrated and deported families. So
Yeah.
thank you, Waterloo. And
Now we want to show you a video a little more about how ICE and our police works in this day and age in 1996.
The 287G program, established by the 1996 Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act, allows ICE to grant state and local police the authority to carry out certain immigration enforcement tasks. Under the program, ICE works with local law enforcement to identify and deport criminal undocumented immigrants in custody. Currently, there are agencies in 21 states participating in the program. Critics of the program, such as the American Civil Liberties Union, call it racial profiling and argue it creates fear within immigrant communities. Supporters of the program deny accusations of racial profiling and targeting undocumented immigrants. They note enforcement occurs only after an individual has been arrested on other charges and is in custody at a jail or detention facility.
All right, coming back from that video, great video, guys.
Great video.
Great video.
Very informative.
Now let's talk a little more about our second law, welfare reform.
More commonly referred to as the 1996 Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act.
this law, I mean, it was a major law. This law aimed at cutting costs and pushing people off public assistance. I mean, people need public assistance.
Yep.
This is it's greatly important, but it had a major side effect. It denied many illegal immigrants access to federal benefits.
Yeah, and like what, Dalton, what would you say are one of these federal benefits that they don't?
And some of the main benefits we tend to see here are just like general financial aid. Like a lot of these legal immigrants, when like full American citizens are struggling, we can have things like food stamps, like general welfare and that stuff.
Healthcare.
But this stuff was being denied to legal immigrants who came here.
Yeah.
This also included supplementary security income and Medicaid, and these were all being taken away from these lawful permanent residents who've done their due diligence to legally come into the United States. And this takes time. It takes like 5+ years, and all this is just going to waste based on these laws.
Yeah. And just like imagine being in their shoes. You're coming to the U.S. legally, and you're working a low-wage job, paying taxes, and suddenly you're losing your health coverage for your kids. and it's just everything kind of goes bad. And you
Everything
worked-
goes crashing down.
Yeah, and you worked very hard. You got here, like you said. You're probably not working the highest paid job, but yet they're still stripping your health care, like you said, the food stamps away.
Dehumanize.
Yeah, it goes back to our point of why these new immigrants were being dehumanized, which they didn't even do anything wrong, you know?
Especially because they'd taken their time to do all the right steps and come here legally, and yet they were still being punished because of the poor public opinion of illegal immigrants, which, to be honest, is a completely separate matter. It has nothing to do with them at all. And it's just, I can't imagine these families, they're finally thinking that they've made it, they've come to this new place, they've done everything right, and then all of a sudden, these brand new laws come into effect, and all that time, all that effort just goes to waste.
Yep, for sure. For sure.
Critics said it was cruel and targeted poor immigrant communities. Supporters argued it would push people to work and become citizens faster.
Yeah, but not everybody could. Some people were elderly or disabled, and simply they couldn't find a path to citizenship. And now this was cutting the resources available to them, which would help them navigate the system of becoming full citizens. Like,
Yeah, exactly. They had no real direction or path to do it, which they needed help, obviously. But yet again, we just wouldn't help them, which is unfair because, you know, like we said, obviously, like they worked very hard to get into this place, but still, we will not help them for some reason, which I don't get. After these laws were passed, the numbers told the story. Deportations skyrocketed between 1996, present, and hopefully for the future, in 2006, it's looking like it is going to nearly triple. Detention centers are now becoming a little more overcrowded, which in the future, like I said, in 10 years, they'll probably triple or quadruple the amount.
And Jake, this is just the beginning.
No, it is.
This
This
is
is-
going to get worse from this.
Yes, I mean,
Many of
after
today's strict policies like family separation, inferior checkpoints, or the use of private detention centers
Yep.
have roots in the 1996 reform.
which, yeah, that's like we're starting this right now, and we can already tell. That's the thing is we've studied it so much, we kind of know where it's going, and it's not looking good. It's
An
not
uphill battle or a downhill battle. We
Yeah.
just don't know yet.
exactly.
let's bring in a real example that happened. There's a case of a man named Hugo who came into the U.S. as a child. He got his green card, working in construction, and had a family where he had 3 kids. And he did spend all this time again. He came in legally. He did everything that he was supposed to. However, but after getting arrested for possession of marijuana in his 20s, he was deported from the United States 15 years after this had happened.
Yeah, that's just heartbreaking.
Under the rules set by the IIRIRA, a crime that had happened over a decade ago caused him to be separated from his family and ruin the life that he worked so diligently to earn here in the United States.
It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't put it any better. And that's just one story, you know? Like, imagine all the others that weren't documented.
There are thousands and
There's
thousands.
probably
of
thousands
cases
of
like
stories that just like that, but yet people, they try to keep it hidden, you know? They try to keep it under the table, which that's just horrible.
And
And
Hugo's
I bet-
a great guy.
Yeah, and I bet thousands of people also feel this heartbreaking feeling, you know, of a crime many years ago, and yet you're still getting punished for it.
Beyond their family too, that could be your best friend, that could be your neighbor, that could be your coworker, and that just has huge impacts obviously in the personal family life,
Yeah.
but like in communities, in the workforce, it's just like completely shattering some of the norms.
Yeah, for sure.
And people are already protesting this, like, of course they find it unlawful, they find it unfair, and even people who aren't affected just realize that the principles that we push of liberty, equality, all of that, these rules just completely undermine all of that. And a lot of American people aren't willing to accept that as a country we're regressing in the values we promote.
Yeah, and I think this is our good point to go to our second video that we have.
Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
Another great video. So now we kind of come to our final questions. Are these reforms fair? Are they helpful? Are they necessary? Or are they just hurtful?
Well, I mean, honestly, Jake's supporters have been saying that they're a crucial step in restoring order and protecting public resources, but critics call them overly punitive, especially for long-time residents with minor offenses. So people who have been in this country 20, 30, 40 years, longer than we were born, would lose and become deported for unlawful reasons or reasons that were already solved.
And of course, this kind of brings us into like a gray area with all these issues, because there's obviously people in here who they're illegal immigrants and they're coming in, and there's also people here who are legal immigrants who've done everything. But the main people this affects is kind of this like in-between area where like people aren't willing to take the time to like take the steps to realize, are they a legal immigrant or are they a legal immigrant? They're always just getting lumped into the same category.
Yeah, and
it's very important to ask, do these laws, are they reflecting our American values? Or are they being driven by fear and politics based off of numbers and statistics that people don't look into?
Kind of like going back to what you just said, like they're really not seen as people here. They're seen as
Humanization.
paper. Yeah, they're just seen. It almost seems like they're
just name something.
Their birth certificate. That is what they're seen as, and they don't see anything else. It's just black and white, you know. And honestly, some say that the 1996 laws created a system of permanent punishment. Others argue that they're a logical response to a broken immigration system. And I honestly just want to know your guys' thoughts on that, because I think it brings up a very good point.
No matter your view, Jake, one thing is clear. The 1996 laws reshaped immigration in America permanently. I mean, it's made an everlasting impact, and it will make an everlasting impact for decades to come.
And good or bad, it has given us a strong impact, and definitely, I think maybe it has reshaped us, the public opinion on the U.S. after this, because of obviously how we started. You know, we were all immigrants at the start, and then we fled to America, started our own country. So I mean, it definitely changes the public opinion, I would say.
And also beyond the public opinion, just how laws, how everything's are enforced. If you're a current immigrant in the U.S., like your life is completely changed, and it's going to continue to stay that way. These laws don't look like they're going to be repealed anytime soon. So this is the new reality for immigrants in America.
All right. Well, I mean, I think we've gone through a lot of good points. Obviously, you know, the IIRA was the biggest probably point we covered today. Also, just, you know, how immigrants were treated, how unfair it was, and honestly, So thank you for joining our today's episode. We've covered a lot, as we just said, and we hope you will tune in next time.
See you next time on the Immigration Podcast.
Do it, Nemo.
Bum, 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 bum.